Hello everyone and welcome to my second video on Octavia. I wanted to make a video similar to my last Octavia videos, except this time my builds are more perfected and it's with the shiny prime version. I also wrote a script for this entire video because I didn't like the pauses I would have to edit out, and me thinking ahead of time will hopefully make things easier for me. As you can see, I made a couple changes that are more comfortable and fitting to my playstyle. I swapped out Transient Fortitude for Augur Secrets, giving myself more duration and at the cost of a little bit of strength. This makes my buffs not be at 100%, but it allows them to last much longer, so I'm not needing to constantly refresh them. I'm not too worried about the loss in strength for my first ability, because my damage multiplier is still at 6.68 times, and they die at roughly the same speed. Instead of running Corrosive Projection, I'm running Energy Siphon for stronger passive energy gain on top of her own passive, which is, you can't see that from here, but it's while an ability is active, you gain energy. I swapped out her fourth ability for Rhino Roar because of how immobile it makes you feel, and it is really only used in either mobile defense, or if you're camping a spot in survival, and I don't really like how it forces her to play. This makes it much more mobile, especially since it's 80% damage increase. It's almost double. If it were 100, it would be double. But because of the diminished damage increase, it's less damage. But I'm giving up a little bit of damage, about 20%, and I'm also giving up the double range, but this is more consistent and will follow me throughout everything. Plus, I can give it to teammates, which is pretty nice, so that I can absolutely fill the top right of the screen with Metronome and Roar. Lastly, I'm also running the Conductor Augment instead of Power Drift, which lowers my strength even more, but allows me to tell my Mallet, or just my Resonator, to go, so I can group up enemies if it's needed. For weapons, I'm running the Proboscis Cernos. It's mostly for utility, but its damage is actually very surprising. I honestly think it's one of the best weapons in the game right now. I'm also running the Kuvan Nucor for its status, comboed with the Glaive Prime to take care of Arson and Arctic Eximus units when they become immune to blasted damage. In other words, Octavia's first ability, because when they're together, their auras combined, both the cold and the heat, and make it so my first ability just gives me zeros. It's very annoying. I'm also using the Nautilus Sentinel for even more grouping of enemies with the Verglass Sentinel weapon for its high status chance to proc lots of viral enemies that get hit by it. Then on my Octavia Eidolon build, I also made some changes. Again, I've sacrificed some strength, it's at 269 now, but I have a lot more duration, so I don't have to constantly refresh my multi-shot buff and my fourth ability. It's at 282, so the third ability buff lasts for 56 seconds. I'm also screwing efficiency all the way, because energy pads just... I'm constantly eating them anyway, but with negative efficiency, it doesn't really make too much of a difference with how many pads I'm using. You can also run Vigorous Swap instead of Stretch if you wanted to, although the damage buff on the fourth ability will be much smaller, like the range on it will be much smaller, so you'll either have to recast it more often, or you'll have to get some really good angles in order to sit in one spot on top of the fourth ability and shoot all of the limbs. For weapons, I'm going to be running the Rubico for a little bit. I was a really big fan of the Vectis, and I was running the Vectis for a bit, but because I got such a good Riven roll on here, crit damage, crit chance, negative reload speed, the negative reload speed really doesn't matter, especially when you're going to be two-shotting or even one-shotting the limbs. The damage is nice. I would prefer it to be multi-shot, but damage is still very good. But this is as good as I've gotten from almost 1 million Kuva spent into it, so. I forgot to mention that I also helmet Smite, Oberon Smite, instead of Empower on my old build. This makes it so that it's more consistent damage, and I don't have to cast Empower every time on her fourth ability or her third ability for more damage. This is in case I'm not on one of my damage buffs, I still have at least something that's buffing my damage if I don't have my 3 or my 4. And then for the secondary, I'm using the Athadai instead of the Pandero Prime, because with a full build, you know, normal Eidolon build, Prime Pistol Gamut, Prime Target Cracker, ignore how this isn't maxed, and ignore how Prime Heated Charge also isn't maxed, Convulsion, Lethal Torrent, Hornet Strike, and my Riven, critical damage, critical chance, negative damage to McGrenier, your fire rate is actually exactly 8, which is perfect for getting multi-shot buff on her. The only other weapon that I knew of at the time was the Haikyuu, but that required a rank 1 Lethal Torrent, and was just... it was the only thing that you would build it for. You would only build it to get the multi-shot buff. The Athadai actually does damage to limbs and is actually very reliable, and I've been liking it. I've been running it on everything. Even if I don't need... even if I'm not going Octavia, I still run it on something like Chroma or whoever I'm doing a hunt with, but because it is very good. I'm also just using the Sarpo with an armor strip build so that my weapons do more damage. I do have like an Eidolon DPS build that requires Protea, but if my Riven was better, then you could go on something else, but still rolling that. I'm also just using the basic Darza Kavat, just for more crit chance, although it doesn't make too much of a difference unless you randomly get it during the capture stage after all the limbs are gone. And for my final thoughts on Octavia, she actually really needs a rework. This is coming from someone that paid for Plat, bought her when they first started playing, and have had her as my most used ever since there, and plan on keep on playing her Prime. As you can see, this is my use percentage. Octavia, Chroma, Zephyr, Necros, Oberon, and then Octavia Prime, and I'm willing to bet slowly but surely Octavia Prime will become my most used. Seeing how she did just come out, it's going to take a little while, and I've been playing a lot of Zephyr. But I'm super in love with her Prime and everything about it, including the Shazin and the armor, although if they flipped it backwards, it would look much better. But she needs some tweaks. Her fourth ability should be just like her third ability, where it is an aura effect that follows her. Makes it much easier for teammates to get it, and makes it so that it doesn't slow you down. The current version is just a handicap, really. It slows you down too much, and the playstyle doesn't fit the rest of her fast-paced kit. I think you should also be able to switch songs mid-mission with some sort of pop-up user interface or something, because having to listen to the same song for hours on end gets tiring. You're running a 3-hour endurance run, you're having to listen to Baby Shark for that entire time. Like, it's just, I don't know, it gets annoying. I also agree with the rest of the community when I say she is actually very broken. She needs to be nerfed, but not so much in her first ability, like I think everyone else is saying, but more in her second ability. Resonator pulling all aggro away from you entirely and being invisible permanently seems like a bit much, especially when you can helmet this ability onto other warframes. It makes it so that you have an unbelievable amount of CC and the invisibility isn't even needed the entire time. Making it so you have more skill expression would be very nice. I much like the thought behind the Shazin. If there was some sort of Shazin implementation into her, I think it would be really cool, or like the same mechanics from it. You could pull off combos like you can with the Hunting Horn and Monster Hunter, pulling off different like movement sets, give different buffs, things like that. Making her an actual DJ even, and give her mechanics like the game Electronauts, where you are literally the DJ, but they do it in a way where it's easy for people to just get right into it. Having a lot more skill expression like these games give you makes it a lot better than just pressing your first ability, your second ability, your third ability, and crouching a lot, and your fourth ability for more damage, that like most of the Octavia player base does. Granted, I like to place my first, second ability, and then run around and kill random shit, like kind of be two players at once sort of thing going on, but I know 99% of people just be invisible and let their first ability do everything, which I can't really blame them because it's effective. It's what DE made her do. I also understand that DE can't give Octavia players a BPM slider because of all of the game's emotes are tuned to that rhythm and have multiple Octavias in a mission with different songs at different speeds that sound horrible. One of my pet peeves is hearing two different songs at the same time, and if it's two Octavias in the same BPM, it sounds good sometimes even. I'll be playing with my friends, they'll have some random song, I'll have some random song, and I'll be like, wait, hold on. You use your first and second ability, I'll use my third ability, and I'm like, wow, that sounds cool. And then we'll run that for the rest of the mission, because I think it sounds neat. But having a BPM slider at different speeds, like 2 different songs, 2 different speeds, it would not sound good. And I know there's the argument, oh, we'll just mute Team Octavias, and it's like, there's no fun in that. I think that if there's multiple Octavias in a mission, you should be amping each other up. It should be like a music battle sort of thing. I don't know. I don't like the concept of muting other people's music. Like, I'm not the type of person to set up a spammy song and stuff like that and just mute all of the instruments, so I wouldn't mute all other Octavia's instruments. DE has a lot of good concepts for Warframes that are just executed poorly. A prime example is Baruch. Like, let's make a pacifist monk Warframe, but also make him nuke everything with the press of 2 buttons, and make his first ability, the thing that makes him a pacifist, absolutely useless and contradicting to everything of Warframe. I'm ranting, but you get my point. If you guys have any thoughts on my Octavia builds, or what I have to say about her in her current state, please let me know in the comments. And be sure to check out my next video that will be on Chroma, and thank you for watching.